When I say Michelangelo, what work of art comes to mind? The Pieta. This is Sistine Chapel. Did I hear David?
Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles. Did you know that Michelangelo had a habit of abandoning projects? Yeah. And it's 4 of these half-finished statues, known as the Prisoners, that captivated me when I first saw them in Florence 20 years ago. Anyone familiar with them? Yeah. So they're literally 4 men carved out of marble where the block of marble is still there, partially finished. Michelangelo saw himself as liberating the forms imprisoned in the marble. He saw his role as a sculptor, as chipping away the excess to reveal the inherent beauty. The sharp contrast between the rough blocks of marble, and the energy of the emerging characters really is emotionally powerful. In our reading from Job, what's painted is a picture of creation. God as a midwife, and of the sea as a newborn child bursting from the womb. The story of the storm at sea from our gospel is actually the first of 4 crossings or journeys that Mark shares in the next 4 chapters of his gospel. In this case, today, the boat is moving from Capernaum across the Sea of Galilee into Gentile territory. The wind and the sea represent the reality that moving into uncharted spaces presents risk. We all know that Jesus crossed many social and spiritual boundaries. Here's the deal. Following Jesus does not guarantee a storm-free life. So what I want to do now is share 2 examples of people who were courageous in crossing boundaries while allowing wisdom and beauty to emerge. Question, has anyone seen the documentary Teilhard, Visionary Scientist? Okay, it's currently streaming on PBS. Our second reading that Anne proclaimed today was written by Teilhard. As I listened to it about patient trust and the slow work, it occurred to me that lots of the things that we face in our lives, in my current case, recovering from pneumonia, are long processes. And often healing and recovery doesn't happen as fast, certainly as I would have engineered. So frustrating. Anyway, Teilhard was a paleontologist and a geologist born in France in 1881. So just situate that in the context of the time that he was born. He was a prolific observer and a writer. And yet many of his works weren't published until after he died in 1955, which was a memorable year because I was born that year. Perhaps not to him, but anyway. Even as a child, Teilhard saw God totally present in the physical world, throbbing with divine energy. He was ordained a Jesuit in 1911. He was really ahead of his time. He saw creation as unfinished and understood that spirit and matter, the divine, the world, the universe, humanity, and all of creation are connected. He moved beyond the dualism that was the underlying belief: spirit versus matter, soul versus body. Teilhard saw matter as infused with spirit. He saw the evolving universe as a platform to talk about evolution. In his mind, it was all integrated. Some of us recognize that now. He was ahead of his time. So he goes about his work and published an article, or he had written an article on original sin. And he was actually stunned to learn that this article he had written did not conform to church teaching. His boundary crossing ideas, parenthetically, that most of us recognize today as truth, caused conflict with the religious authorities and his Jesuit superior, and ultimately resulted in him being exiled to China and being directed to only write on scientific subjects. The challenge he faced was that he couldn't break the science because everything was connected. Our second reading today comes from a letter that he wrote to his cousin Marguerite from the front lines of World War I, where rather than serving as a chaplain, he chose to serve as a medic. He left a lot of wisdom. The documentary is worth seeing. Just pull it up on your computer or your TV if you have the app. Our second boundary crosser that I want to reference today is Sister Luisa Guerin, a Dominican sister of peace. Anybody ever heard of her? Okay. Sister Luisa has companioned more than 250 trans people over the past 25 years. So just take yourself back in time to 1999 and imagine the challenge she faced. In 1999, she was known by the pseudonym Sister Monica to stay under the radar and limit exposure of her religious community. In effect, she was an anonymous nun at an undisclosed location who prayed for trans people and ministered to them according to the gender they knew themselves to be. Yet by 2018, Luisa felt it was time to leave Sister Monica behind and come out publicly as Sister Luisa. And at that time, it was Sister Janine Gramick of New Ways Ministries who introduced her in a program as a pioneer in the T of LGBT ministry at a time when most Catholics were just coming to understand the L and the G. Luisa has lobbied with organizations like Human Rights Watch. She's spoken at outreach conferences. In fact, recognizing that some of the bishops may never have encountered trans people or known that they were, Luisa has been instrumental in connecting trans people with members of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Doctrine Committee. She maintains that God doesn't bail us out of our difficult moments, but upholds us in the midst of them. So, my friends, the question is, how do you handle the anxiety of being in suspense and incomplete? Especially in those moments, you know, when you get the diagnosis, lose the job, wonder even about what's happening in our country. Perhaps, like Teilhard and Louisa, our role is to engage in the work of incarnating, literally being the presence of God, even when things appear to be breaking down. Glad my voice held up.